This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Okay, good day to you wherever you are all over the planet. Welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. And speaking about that, you can watch and hear us on Facebook.com/TalkTainment. Or you can call 1-877-932-9766. Or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com to get in contact with the show. Let me say good morning to Kim Joshua Jones, I believe it is. Dallas checking in. On that Facebook.com/TalkTainment. I was instructed to make sure that if I could, make sure I give you a shout out. That's what management wants me to do, so I'm going to give you a shout out. And then I can also take your questions or comments. Some of them I can read. Obviously, I will not be able to read all of them, but we will do that. If you do decide to use the Gmail, understand that it now goes into a question rotation, and whatever question comes up, that's the question that we will deal with. It doesn't have to be on the topic, and a lot of them are backing up because my Gmail box is overstuffed. So we will get to them eventually, and that all depends on the time that Mr. Fuller takes to address your question, and we want him to do that. So those are the three ways that you can call. So before we get started with the calls, let's say good morning to Mr. Fuller, and good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you doing this day?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. I tell you what I'm going to do. We got a caller right off the bat. So we're speaking on the topic that we are speaking on would be the 8th area of people activity, which will be sex. And I don't know how long we will be on it, but when we get done, then that's when we will be done. I'm going to take a call right now before we get started. Okay, caller, you are now, what line? Okay, line 1. Okay, yeah, that light's in the way. Okay, caller, go ahead. You are on.
Peace and blessings, gentlemen. How's everybody doing this morning? Compensatory Constructive Action Meeting every Saturday, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., Baltimore, Maryland, 2800 St. Flo Drive across from Lake Clifton. Yeah, I just wanted to set it off today. I've noticed how codified they were with these shootings in Las Vegas, how I'm noticing how codified white supremacy is when it came to the shooting. And I also want to let everybody know to keep this subject on the front line. Don't let it rest. If you have to wear shirts, if you have to speak, any way you can speak out against white supremacy or show that you're not supporting white supremacy. This is for all people who want to produce justice. You have to keep this alive through Facebook. Show pictures of population tailoring. Every city, Baltimore especially, has thousands of places where it's ran down, vacant, people have been pushed out. We have to show pictures of this to the world, let the world know how we're being treated. In any constructive way you can do that. We have to keep this conversation alive. Thank you, gentlemen.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you for your comment there. Say hello to Governor Marcus Williams from Pensacola, Florida. D. Wesson indicated that the class is now in session. And let's see, Dwayne Anderson. And he says, good morning, Mr. Fuller. Class is in session, so let's go. All righty. Starting in the area of sex, Mr. Fuller. This comes off the Gmail from Root Dog. He says, greeting, Mr. Fuller. On page 290 of the revised code reads, in part A, in quotations, boy cannot function as a man in his interaction with a female person. A female person cannot function as a woman if she is forced to be subject to or forced to interact with a, quote, boy, end of quote, and pretend that the boy, in quotations, is a man. Question: when a non-white female attempts to demean or insult her non-white male partner by calling him a, quote, boy, end of quote, or saying, quote, you're no man, end of quote, what is the correct compensatory response from the non-white male? Silence, since no question was asked, only a statement made by the non-white female, or should the non-white male say, you are correct?
Well, when anybody calls anybody a name, the first thing, according to the code, that a person should do who is being called a name is say, if they object to the name or the title, just say what their name or title is. Now, if the person continues to call them by some other name, then that's up to them to decide whether they're going to continue the conversation. That's the United Independent factor. But what I do and what I recommend be done according to the code, based on logic, anybody can call me any kind of name that they want to call me. But I will give them the name or title that I have. And if they want to call me by some other name or title, that's up to them. But what I will go immediately then to is the subject matter of what they're talking to me for. In other words, regardless of what name they call me, I just want to know what are they calling my attention to? What is the conversation about? Call me by anything that you want to, because whatever it is that you're calling me does not make me what you're calling me. See, I govern that. I said what I was, according to my own judgment. But if a person wants to call me a nickname or whatnot, and I've been called all kinds of nicknames and whatnot, even starting when I was going to elementary school, and I paid no attention to it, because that's what the person chooses to call me. I have nothing to do with that. That's not a social contract. That's the United Independent way of doing things.
Okay.
You always focus on the subject matter, what is being said. In other words, for example, if the person calls me some nickname and I say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, always address the person as courteously as you possibly can. You're not looking for an argument. Arguments are supposed to be eliminated between all people on the planet, and particularly victims of racism. That should be one of the main goals that we should have right now in 2017. Eliminate every argument. It's not going to be any arguments. It can be a discussion, or it can be just dead silence. But it's not going to be an argument. Once a person starts arguing, there's something that's out of order. Arguing means everything is, animosity is being heightened. You're gearing up for a fight. So knowing that this is something that particularly victims of racism are prone to do in the system of white supremacy, it should be avoided. Once it seems like you're heading toward an argument, you simply dismiss yourself by saying, sir, ma'am, I will talk to you at some other time. And then break off communications, because you're not communicating. Arguments are not communications of any kind. You don't look at it as communicating. When you have a conversation, you come up with a constructive result. An argument does not lead to a constructive result.
Okay. Do we have a phone call here or what? Line one? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Okay, line one, go ahead.
I'm still learning, Mr. Fuller. I have a question, and it has to do with the area we're talking about, which is sex. And since, Mr. Fuller, you were ahead of the curve when you predicted years ago that the white supremacists were going to go down the path of sexual confusion, I just want your prediction of how long that it's going to take them, do you think, to normalize bestiality or zoophilia, going with having sex with animals, or incest? How long do you think that's going to come down the pipe? And I'll listen for your answer.
It's whenever. The answer is I do not know. I don't know their timetable, but they have their own timetable that they're doing it for every area of activity, and sex is one of them for when they do certain things a certain way, because they have their reasons, and they pick their times to do whatever they think is the best time to make a certain move. So in all of this sexual gerrymandering that they have now, I don't know when they will make a move to say that incest, particularly among non-white people, is now the fashion of the day. I mean, that slogan that someone invented some years ago, about 20 years ago, the family that lays together stays together. They're sending out that kind of message then, okay? And like I said, all of this sexual gerrymandering, regardless of how it looks on the surface, just like with the drugs, is directed toward the non-white people of the known universe.
Okay. All righty. Got a question here. Daryl Weston says here for Mr. Fuller. My question for Mr. Fuller is about the symbol of kneeling. We see all these black male in pro sports taking knees as their form of protest. I say it's a position of weakness as opponents. And then Daryl, I can't get the rest of it in here. Mr. Fuller, what say you?
Well, I say that any victim of racism can react to racism in any form or fashion that he or she chooses to do. That's the United Independent codified response. I can't pass judgment on how a victim is going to react. I can make suggestions, but I cannot pass judgments on the choices that are made. Why? I'm not qualified. And why is it I'm not qualified? Because I haven't solved the race problem. So I don't know what will work and what won't. So if they think that will work, that's up to the person. See, one victim of racism, one prisoner of war, should not try to dictate to another prisoner of war how that prisoner of war should react to his or her imprisonment. That's not code.
Mm-hmm.
The United Independent, meaning you're united in what your goal is, but you're independent or an individual. You best say it. You are an individual. You don't give that up when it comes to how you are going to react as an individual to your victimization. You have VGQ on that, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. You can express any way that you want to express your resentment of or your opposition to the system of white supremacy. You have earned that just by being a victim. And no one, particularly another prisoner of war, another non-white person, is supposed to say, don't do that. I mean, and I'm telling you, you better not do that. And I'm saying I'm going to call you names if you do that, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No, you do it the way you see fit to do it. You know how your victimization is impacting you. Only you know that. So another person can't look over your shoulder and start dictating, particularly another prisoner of war, a person who is still wearing the uniform that you're wearing as a prisoner of war, your non-white skin, and tell you how you can go about, and you must go about in a dictatorial fashion, your resentment or your opposition to the system of white supremacy. You're not qualified to do that. Why? Because you're still a prisoner yourself. If you know so much, how come you're a prisoner? That's the way that works.
Okay.
Ask yourself that question every day. If I know so much about what to do about racism, why am I still a prisoner of racism?
Okay.
I got all the answers.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hello to Dwayne Anderson. He says, hello, Mr. Fuller from Indian Rock Beach, Florida. Judah, on your way to work, Larry in Dallas. That comes from the facebook.com/Talktainment page there. Thank you for listening. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as, you know them, news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Okay, let's go down the list here. What do we have here? How about this? Real Men and the Voice of the Pink Pearl, and it's your time to travel. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. All you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times. Talktainment Radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. Hey, I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are on the 8th area of people activity, which we're going to be dealing with sex, but as you well know, Mr. Fuller is going to be dealing with sex, but as you well know, you can go off topic, and it's okay. The show is not rehearsed, it's just as live as it is. You can get in contact with the show and leave a message by going to facebook.com/Talktainment. You can do that. You can also call by the way, you can hit the like button there, and there's a place for you can leave a message, such as the one from Andre Therese, I believe, said good morning. You can do that. We can read some of them, but we will not be able to read all of them, but thank you. You can also call 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Mind you, if you use that, I may not get to it for a while because we're allowing Mr. Fuller a chance to address each question, phone calls, and then messages, and then Gmail. So mind you, if you are expecting your Gmail to be read within today's show or next week, no can do. First come, first serve. So just do that. You can use the Gmail if you would like. Okay, let's see here. Before I go to the Gmails, let's take a question. What line? Line 1. Okay, good hand. I can see that one. Line 1, you're on.
Hey, how you doing? Neely Fuller, this is my question for you. How do you get black people who believe that they are inferior to white people collectively to ask questions? That's question number 1.
Making a suggestion. See, everything in counter-racist science is, for the victim of racism, is to make suggestions. That's all. That's all I do. My entire book is just list of suggestions. And then I give reasons, in many instances, why I made the suggestion. And what I think will work and what I think won't work. And then some things I haven't tested. It's just speculation. But I put it out there for a person who wants to put a test to it to see if it works. If it doesn't work, it's not supposed to be a part of the code anyway.
Okay, so
racism is supposed to be an exact science. Yes, sir.
Okay, so would you tell somebody that they don't like to ask questions because they have an inferiority complex? But that is the truth. That's the reason why black people, on average, collectively, do not seek to ask questions, because they're afraid of the embarrassment that they feel when they ask questions. That is the truth. That's number 1 reason why they don't ask questions, to learn things. So I'm asking, are you saying the only thing you could do is just give suggestions on to face that? Is that the only thing you could do, just give suggestions to face that?
I'm saying that's a universal law. All problems are solved through what? The process of questions and answers. So we're talking about solving problems. So there are no exceptions, whether you're white, non-white, short, tall, whatever, at any age, at any era, 1,000 years from now. If you're going to solve a problem, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. There's never been a problem that was solved without someone, somewhere, at some time, raising a question. Going to the moon, for example. Maybe the first question was, what's that? Someone looks up and they see something up there. And they say, what is that? And then 1,000 years, 2,000 years later, another person asked another question, do you think we can get there? And I saw a cartoon or something where people were trying to climb mountains, thinking since it looks like the moon was right behind the mountain, that if they climbed to the top of that mountain, they could reach out and touch the moon. That's what it looked like, the way that they were seeing it. So the people actually climbed the mountains. Some of them falling down off the mountain, some of them dying. But they wanted to know. They were asking that question. But when they got to the top of the mountain, they found that the moon was still very, 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 very far away. So then, thousands of years later, someone else said, maybe we can figure out a way to get in some type of cart or bicycle or something and get there, actually go there, and maybe get back. But they asked the question, how do you go about doing that? It was always a question.
Always a question.
That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers.
Okay.
No way around it.
Alrighty. Again, from the Facebook.com/talktainment line. Mr. Fuller, Emma Apenu, I cannot pronounce that the second, but listen to this, from Bali, Indonesia. Bali, Indonesia is saying hello. Bedola Oma Oye is saying good morning. And Lloyd Dave from Chicago. Hey, Chicago checking in. Thank you. Hey, I do this. Management said do it, so I do it. I say that because somebody wrote me and asked me about that. Why do I do this? They said that it was taken away from the show. But management said to do it, so I'm doing it. You have a problem, you need to talk with them. Okay, let's do this one here. Let's go to the book. Mr. Fuller, on page 291 at the bottom. This is of the Revised Expanded Edition. The question came up at the very bottom, male-female interaction. The question is, when is a male person, and it's in quote, parentheses, as a male person with, and that's in quotations, a female person as a female person? And your answer to that would be?
The answer to that is only when that male person is engaging in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with that female person, and both persons are enjoying it. Now, what was the question? The question was, when is a male person as a male person with, parenthesis, with, that word with, a female person, as a female person. And the only time that happens is when you're engaging in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with that female person, and both persons, meaning they have made the decision and they are consciously aware of what they're doing, both persons are enjoying it. That's the only time a male person is actually with a female person. The rest of the time, it's just a person to person. Oh. It has nothing to do with sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a person with a person, if you're going to use the word with. But if you're talking about a sexual context, male with female, because that's what sex is. Sex only is with male with female. If it's not male with female, it's not sex. It's something else. You can call it by some other invented term, but it's not sex. According to what? According to logic.
Okay. Again, from the Facebook.com/talktainment line, Jesus de Silva says this, good morning. Mr. Fuller, do you believe that white supremacists have the technology to clone people?
I don't know, but I believe that they are probably looking for it if they don't have it, because white supremacists want to know how to do everything. This is why they like to stay in the position of being masters. See, if you're going to be a master of all of the people on the planet, most of the people on the planet who are classified as non-white, and most of the people on the planet, from what I've heard, are classified as non-white, black, brown, red, yellow, tan, beige, people of color, they say, if you're going to be master over all of these people at all times, without exception, in every area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, you have to be a smart person. You cannot be a lazy person, and you cannot be a person who is not knowledgeable and has a lot of understanding of how things work in all of those areas of activity. You're going to have to know all these things. So they are in the business of being masters over the non-white people, the white supremacists, that is. And not talking about all white people, but I'm talking about those who have chosen to participate in the system of white supremacy. They know you have to learn a lot about everything, not some things, everything. Anything that can possibly be known, you want to know it. And they make it their business to try to find it out. They're constantly in a learning mode. And they teach their victims, black people, to be constantly in a non-learning mode. Don't try to learn nothing except what homeboy's doing down the block. Don't expand your knowledge beyond that at all. Try to figure out what the latest slang is. Keep up with whatever fads I put out there, whatever styles I put out there. That's the white supremacist talking, that is. You non-white people, chase after whatever I say is valuable. If I don't say it's valuable, don't pay any attention to it. If I say it's not valuable. If I say it's valuable, be willing to kill your own mother in order to take care of it or get it, whatever it is, a new pair of shoes or whatever, with my name on it or somebody's name. I mean, a logo. Chase after it. Why? Because I said so. I'm your master. You're not supposed to think ever about anything except what I tell you to do. What I tell you is important. What I say is important to you. Why? Because I said so. Anything off of that chart, you got a problem with me, boy.
Wow. Whoa. So that's compensatory logic?
That's according to the code. That's what white supremacy is all about. And you have to, like I said, what the question is about, knowledge and understanding, you better believe it. They absorb it. They chase after it. Knowledge and understanding of everything, every grain of sand that's at the bottom of the ocean. They want to know about it. How many grains of sand are at the bottom of what ocean? When? What time? How did it get there? They want to know.
All righty. TalkTameRadio.com. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are discussing the area of sex, the 8th area of people activity. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, and mind you, you need to be patient because we are slowly going through this. You can see and hear us on Facebook.com/Talktainment. You can do that. You can also call 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. If you use that, it's going to be a long time before I get to it, but I will get to it. By the way, when you go to the Facebook.com/Talktainment page there, you can also hit the like button. You can leave a question. And mind you, I'm not going to read or be able to get to all of the questions because things are happening rapidly, and I have to handle that as best as I can. So don't be offended if I do not read your question or if I miss your name, because I just may do that. It's not personal. Okay, it's business. Mr. Fuller, on page 292 of the Revised Expanded Edition, since we are in class, under the section of males, you need to address that, and then we'll go to page 293 before we take a call here. Under males, could you explain that? You highlighted males, and then you went on, do not attempt to engage. And could you explain that, please?
Okay, it says here on page 292, under the 8th area, sex is addressed to males.
Yes.
Do not attempt to engage in any act of sexual intercourse unless the non-white female with whom you have indicated a desire to engage in sexual intercourse with does all of the following: willfully, deliberately, and voluntarily remove all covering and all ornaments and adornments from her body and presents herself completely naked within your complete, open, and easy view, and while completely naked, she willfully, deliberately, and voluntarily approaches you and touches her body to yours. Now, there's a note under that.
Yes.
The aforementioned codified procedure for probable sexual interaction should help to minimize actions that may be regarded as unwanted sexual contact. Examples such as rape, sexual assault, etc. If the female doesn't do all of these things, then you are not supposed to put your hands on her. I mean, if you don't, this thing about rape and sexual assault and what they call groping and grabbing them by the whatever and whatnot, no. If the female herself does not go through all of these things, presents herself naked without any ornaments, and not only that, because she may be a model of some type. You know, they got all kinds of things that go on, I mean, in studios and whatnot. She might be an artist model, and she doesn't have on anything at all, and she's posing for someone to draw her picture or something, and but she doesn't want anybody to touch her, okay? So therefore, she has to actually touch the male and indicate that, hey, I have intentions of having sexual intercourse with you. Now, that's not in what you call popular culture, but that's the way it should be done, so that we can get rid of all of this charges and all of this controversy about sexual assault, rape. I mean, you got all kinds of rape cases right now in court, all kinds of sexual assault. Ladies who are out jogging and whatnot, someone gropes them or something like that. No, no, no. All that's got to stop. You don't touch her without her grandiose permission for doing so.
Okay.
And let her indicate that this is okay.
All right. Now, right on the next page, you under when a person mentions an intention to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with you, you mentioned this: ask the following questions. Now, you have 9 there, but just select a few and then give explanation, please.
Okay, it says, when a person mentions to an intention to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with you, you ask these following questions. Do you truly want to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with me, or do you want to know that you can if you want to? In other words, just ask the question. All problems are solved, all misunderstandings are solved through the process of what? Can't emphasize this enough. Questions and answers. Number 2, why do you intend to engage in sexual intercourse and or in sexual play with me? Now, either party, 2 people involved, can ask that question. Why do you intend to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play with me? You must have a reason. What is your reason? Why me? You can always ask that. Why me? Number 3, when and where do you intend to engage in sexual intercourse and or in sexual play with me? Number 4, how often do you intend to engage in sexual intercourse and or in sexual play with me? You may want to know is, wait a minute, is this supposed to be a one-night stand or what? What is this? What kind of relationship is this going to be beyond this? You might have a series, maybe 500 or 600 questions after that first question. When and where do you intend to engage in sexual intercourse? How often? What do you intend to do with me or about me after you have engaged in sexual intercourse or sexual play with me? Do you believe that sexual intercourse and or sexual play with me will help to improve constructive communications between us?
That's number 6, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but you can ask that as number 1 if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if the person brings it up, you can say, now, do you think that's going to improve constructive communications between us? Let's get this straight right from the beginning. Is this going to contribute to a constructive relationship in any way? If not, let's get that straight right now, right out of the gate. See, what you're doing here now is eliminating that thing called misunderstanding. Everybody will be on the exact same page.
Okay.
There'll be no misunderstanding. It ain't going to be no arguments because you're going to get all that cleared up before anybody makes a move. So all of this so-called conflict between male and female, you want to nip that in the bud before conflict can even arise, has a possibility of arising.
Okay.
Won't be no conflict. First trip to that bedroom, not going to be any conflict as a result of that first trip, and there's not going to be any conflict ever after. Why? Because you got it all straight before you went there. That's supposed to be the codified procedure.
Okay, well, number 7, what is that right there?
Number 7, do
Yes,
you
sir.
believe that sexual intercourse and our sexual play with me will help us to think, speak, and act to oppose white supremacy in a more effective manner? If so, how? Now, this is a very important question. And why is it in the code book? It's because, one thing, if you're non-white and you're on this planet, the system of white supremacy is going to affect everything that you do, whether you are with someone else or not. And so everything that you do with someone else, particularly when it comes to sexual intercourse or sexual play, you have to be on the same page about ending racism. Otherwise, you don't have any business in bed in the first place.
Okay.
You both have to be committed to that. That's got to be an understanding.
Yes, sir.
Why? Because it's going to affect your so-called relationship in every aspect, economically, educationally. When you have offspring and all like that, now you got to go around and start talking about where we going to send the children. All that should have been thought about before you got in bed in the first place.
Okay.
All right? And on and on and on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, you might as well finish it out. You have 2 more.
Do you believe that sexual intercourse and our sexual play with me will help us to think, speak, and act in support of the production of justice? Meaning, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, including each other, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help, including each other.
Yes, sir.
Since you all two are there together, I mean, so you believe in justice. There's not going to be any mistreatment of any kind. That's got to be understood. I'm not going to mistreat you. I don't care what happens. I am not going to mistreat you.
Yes, sir.
All right? And we're going to get that straight right out, before anything, before this conversation ends. And it gets serious beyond that. All right. Otherwise, there won't be any sexual intercourse and our sexual play until we are agreed that we both believe in justice, which means just guarantee that nobody gets mistreated.
Yes, sir.
And guarantee that the person that needs help the most will get the most constructive help. See, now this slows down everything. But when it comes to this sexual matter, with non-white people, maybe everything needs to be a little slow.
Okay.
You know, just like building a nice house. I mean, it might be slow. Having a nice meal. Just, you know, sit there and gobble right quick. I mean, you know, and then get indigestion and whatnot. No. Slow down.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Take everything into consideration. All right? You get more out of it in the long run.
Yes.
Rather than what we usually get. And what has turned out to be a disaster
Yes,
among
sir.
black people. That's male-female interaction.
Yes, sir.
It is a total disaster, all of it. Okay.
And then the last
Going to
one.
Number 9.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you believe that we can engage in sexual intercourse and our sexual play with each other without, in any way, doing unjust harm to each other or to others? And if so, how? And answer that question. See, these are questions that should be asked when there's an intention to engage in sexual intercourse and or sexual play.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Both people, both persons can ask, you know, it's equal. It's equal. It's not the male asking the female and she's got to answer the questions, but you're not answering nothing. No. Both people have to agree to answer and ask these questions. It's totally democratic.
Okay.
Now, if you don't agree to do this, then you can't come up Monday morning quarterbacking. You've jumped in bed now. You've had all that sex, marathon sex, all right? Now you begin to ask these questions. That doesn't work.
Okay.
The question should be asked and answered before first act.
Okay. Before we talk about your book, let me ask this, and then we can talk about your book. Are these questions part of the 150 or 200 questions that should be asked in forming a relationship?
They can be.
Okay.
See, in other words, they're not in a box.
Okay. All right.
Questions and answers are never in a box.
Yes, sir.
Questions and answers stand alone.
Yes, sir.
Because every question has what? An answer.
Yes, sir.
Even if the answer is, I don't know. Oh, baby, I don't know the answer to that question. You know, I have to think about that where you think about it, Buster. Otherwise, get your hands off my legs.
Okay. All righty. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Story Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can get in contact with the show by going to Facebook.com/TalkTainment. Hit the like button. There's a comment button there. You can do that. You can also call at 1-877-932-9766, or you can email me or Gmail me by the numero 7, Mr. Bobby @gmail.com, and then your question goes in rotation and will be answered. Mr. Fuller, this is the time where we must speak about your book, so the floor is yours.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is just a brief description of both the basic textbook and an addition to the basic textbook, if you want it, called a compensatory counter-racist codified word guide, and indicates some examples of how to use a number of words and how not to use the words, and what questions to ask when other people use these same words, because words are very important. Words are the tools that people use to interact with each other. Any kind of transaction in any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And the book, the basic book, is segmented according to the 9 areas of activity, major areas.
Okay.
Itself. And you can get them by going to either one or the other. Most people get the basic book, but you can get one or both volumes by going to producejustice.com.
All
like
right.
in the production of justice, producejustice.com.
All righty. Okay, the phone lines are open again, so you can get your calls in. Let's go to the Gmails. This is, I'm not going to mention this person's name, but anyway, it says this. This person says, I'm currently residing with my mother along with my brother. He doesn't contribute to any bills, doesn't clean up, but plays video games day after day. I'm at the point of being angry, but I'd rather not create a conflict that will most likely certainly end up with race soldiers being on the scene. Mr. Fuller, what would be the most constructive way to handle the situation?
Well, I don't know about the particulars of the situation, but generally speaking, you just try to interact with the person in such a way as to say, is to raise questions. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. You just simply say, if you continue the way that you are doing, do you think that you are putting a burden on me? See, that's a question. Just talk to him. Do you think that you are putting a greater burden on me that I can't bear forever? And then we will all be in trouble. We will all be out there on the sidewalk. Do you want to see every member of this care unit? That's what the code calls it. Mm-hmm. We don't really have control over families because we don't have families.
Yes, sir.
The supremacists don't allow it. So I call them care units, compensatory care units. Say, we're just a care unit here. I care about you. Supposedly you care about me and the other people in this house. Now, do you want to see us all out here in the street? That's a question. Because that's where this is leading. It's getting to be too much for me to handle. I have too many things to do, and I don't have any help. You can see that. I'm not getting help from you. Now, do you want to see us all out in the street? And do you think that's a solution to our problem, that we all be out there looking for a place to go as of next week or next month? Because that's where we are going to be. Do you have an answer to that question?
Okay.
And just keep asking that question. Just keep putting it in front of him. Do you see where this is going? Do you think that we can continue this forever? Or if you don't think we can continue it forever, how long do you think we can continue it? And what are we going to do when we can't continue it? Just one question right after another.
I see.
And let him think about it.
Okay.
Do you see what is going on around you? All right? Do you know that I'm going to run out of money for helping you? Or that everybody else is? I mean, do you think that we can continue doing what we are doing, the way that we are doing it, with you not contributing? Do you think that's the correct thing? Do you think that's the way you or someone else should treat you?
All righty. There you go. I'm not going to mention that name. Okay. Let's do this. Boy, you're getting a lot of likes on that one too, Mr. Fuller. Very good. Okay. Those likes are coming from the facebook.com/talktainment line. Boy, a lot of them running through there. Okay. This comes from, and this person asked not to say their name, so we won't do that. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I remember you once said that the N-word meant a victim of white supremacy. Do other racist words that the white supremacists use against other non-white people, such as the words, I'm not going to say these words, but reference to Mexicans and Chinese, etc., have the same meaning? Thank you for your response.
Basically, I mean, in my opinion, because if it's a white supremacist, when they look at a non-white person, they always come up with what they call nicknames for them that they consider to be offensive, consider to be a put-down. The white supremacists, they invent terms that they think that will make you, quote-unquote, angry or make you feel bad or make you go into a dejective mood. But the way the code handles the word, the N-word, I just simply say, you give it a definition, because that's where its power comes from. It doesn't have a definition. Every definition that I've ever seen for that has been, it's a derogatory term for a person of African descent, Negro, or colored, people of color, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so reaction from the non-white person that resents it. And so that's fun to them. That means something to them. And so that they reserve that word because they get that kind of reaction, because they want that kind of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
They want the black person to get upset. Now, in knowing this years ago, I came up with a definition for it. Since derogatory, it's a derogatory term, but they don't tell you why. See, that's the key to its power.
Yes, sir.
The minute you give a definition to a word, it begins to lose its power because it limits its power to that definition. But if you don't give it a definition, I can call you by any name. I can make up a name right now and call you by that name, and you don't know what it is I'm calling you. I have power over you because now you're reacting to something that you can't understand, and because that's what it really is. But I say that a N, when they use the N word, I have it in the code book. It's just a term that the white supremacists use to say that I'm a victim of white supremacy. That's basically what they're saying, because you can't be the N word without being a victim of white supremacy. If you're not a victim of white supremacy, you can't be that. So by definition, they're just saying you're a prisoner of war. All right? Based on color. That's all the person is saying. And I will agree with them on that. See what I mean? In other words, I seize the word and give it a definition that'll work for me.
Yes, sir.
So when a white person calls me that name, it doesn't offend me because I have given it a definition because it didn't have a definition. And I said, oh, you're just saying I'm a victim of white supremacy. Oh, yeah, well, I know that. So what else is new? And I'm pleased that you are admitting that that's what I am, that you recognize that that's what I am, and that you said that's what I am. Mm-hmm. So I can always say that you said it.
Yeah.
All right? You said I was a victim of white supremacy, And if the white person says, well, that's not what I said, I just call you the N-word because I knew that would make you angry. That would make you walk off this job, which is what I wanted you to do anyway. All right? But they'll never get me to walk off of a job by calling. They can call me that all day long. In fact, I can come in. If I worked in a place and they had it all over the walls, every time I came in there, I would say, hey, that's some pretty good writing,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I would sit down and just go right to work, I don't pay none of that no attention. That's their effort.
That's their effort.
To do that work.
Oh, okay.
It has nothing to do with I'm not in charge of walls.
Oh, okay.
All right? I'm just doing my job, collecting my salary. But I don't expect you to like me no way.
So, okay.
In the system of white supremacy, every black person have it in their minds. I don't expect they all to like me no way. There ain't no reason to like me.
I see.
I'm a prisoner of war.
Okay. Let's see here. Brother Anthony McKen from the United Kingdom, your question is entirely too long, but if you rewrite it, then I'll read it. When you hear the music, you know what that means. TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and then stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept on TalkTameRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty, welcome to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, the world's greatest radio. You're in touch with the Compensatory Concept. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, and this is radio the way it should be heard. We are in our fourth session of the eighth area of people activity, sex. We are taking your questions. You can go to facebook.com/talktainment. Hit the like button. There's a comment button there. You can also do, just as Marina Watts just did, good morning, says to Mr. Fuller. I'm not going to be able to read all of your questions. I will read as many as I can possibly get to. I am directed to call out your name, give you a shout out. Management said to do that, so I will do that. You can also get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And your question, if you use that method, will go into a question rotation. And what that means is the first question up will be the first question asked. And depending upon the time that Mr. Fuller takes to address that and all the other preceding activity, that is when your question will be addressed, and he will address your questions, no doubt about that. Okay, let's see here. We're speaking on sex. We ended up, we're going to be starting on page 294 if we get a chance to ask some questions there, and I really would like to do that since we are in school and learning. There's some very good questions there. But anyway, let's go to the Gmail. This comes from Tuhiti Amen. And it says this, Mr. Fuller, suggestions for what non-white people should be doing is found on page 58, 59, and 60 of the code book. Will you speak on the value of page 58, 59, and 60? What pages are 58, 59, and 60 in the updated version of the book? I looked at that, Mr. Fuller, and it definitely is in the area of economics, so I really don't know what they were asking, but I read it as is. 58, 59, and 60.
And that's under economics.
Yes.
Right. Now, I don't know the page numbers either. Could you give me those page numbers?
Well, I'll just have the new edition, the updated version with me.
In the new edition, because I don't remember.
Okay. On the new edition, there is, let's see, it starts on page 59 in the new edition, and it deals with just what you said, economics.
On page 59?
59 of the new revised
edition.
Yeah, the expanded edition. Yeah,
that. I'll make a notation.
Okay, yeah, 59, 60, and 61. So I'm assuming that
yes, right on the first page.
Yeah,
I remember. Right.
Yes.
Yes. What economics means and whatnot.
Yes, for non-white people.
Right. Okay, but on page 60, that's the real core.
Okay.
Of the whole economics program. If it's nothing else that a person remembers in economics, and this is even true, because it's the same thing that I had in the original version, going back prior to 1984, and it's also in the 1984 edition, and that's on page 60. The use of time and energy, that is what economics is. Economics is not just about money. When people think about economics, they think about money. No, money is just a tool of economics, a tool of using what? Time and energy. That's all it is. Money is about the use of time and energy. So economics is about how you use all of your time and all of your energy as an individual person. And it says here, at the end of each day, measure the value of your accomplishments only by how effective you were in saying or doing something that proved to be useful in helping to end white supremacy, which is what black economics is supposed to be about, ending white supremacy, and are in helping to produce justice. If you're helping to produce justice, you're helping to end white supremacy. If you're helping to end white supremacy, you're helping to produce justice. Why? Because white supremacy is about non-justice. It's about guaranteeing that people will be mistreated and guaranteeing that the people who need help the most won't get it. That's what white supremacy is for. That's their goal, all right? So as long as white supremacy exists, use all of your time and energy doing the following. And these are just 4 things, very simple. If you start talking about black economics, non-white economics, we got to get an economic program and all like that. Okay, this is the generalized format. Just 4 things. Number 1 of the 4 things: producing, building, repairing, improving, and or cleaning those things that have a constructive value and using them for constructive purposes only. That's number 1. Number 1. I want to reiterate that. Producing, building, repairing, improving, and or cleaning those things that have a constructive value and using them for constructive purposes only. That's what you're supposed to be doing with your time and energy as number 1. Always doing something that has constructive value. If you find yourself doing anything, ask yourself why you're doing it. Is this constructive? And if it is constructive, how is it constructive? I mean, how does it prove that it's constructive? Does it build something up or tear something down? Am I making a problem or am I solving a problem? You can put it that way. Because if you're making a problem, that's not constructive. You're supposed to be problem solving. All right? That's economics. That's the correct use of time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Number 2, studying, writing, asking questions, and or exchanging views with others about all aspects of how to eliminate racism and how to produce justice in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Studying and writing and asking questions and exchanging views with others. Now, you can't get lost with these 4 things that I'm saying. I want to interject this right now. Why? Because we're doing that right now. We are, we're studying.
Yes.
We're not doing any writing.
I am.
Except those who are taking notes and whatnot.
Yes, okay.
Asking questions.
Yes.
Changing views. That's what this program is about.
Yes, sir.
See, so I'm right on. I'm doing using time and energy the way it's supposed to be done. About what? Exchanging views about what? All aspects of how to eliminate racism.
Yes, sir.
And how to produce justice in all areas of activity. That's what we're doing right now, so that we're conforming to the use of time and energy according to the code. Okay, number 3, eating and sleeping correctly and only as necessary. Now, a lot of us need to start doing that. I have a little problem with that. Why? Because the major problem is, along about now, because I'm doing my best, trying to find out what to eat. Ooh. Because the food is so poisonous.
Ooh. Ooh.
I mean, we got artificial food. We got plastic food. You go into a so-called grocery store,
yes,
well stocked, and it's all this, pastries and plastic and cardboard and whatnot, and they're selling you that it's food. It's cardboard. I mean, that's what you're eating. If you look at the ingredients on it, it's got a whole bunch of stuff all written in some kind of language you don't understand. It's not telling you what is really happening to your body when you put that in there.
Yes, sir.
But as it is, you do the best you can. I'm trying to do the best that I can.
Yes, sir.
Eating and sleeping correctly and only as necessary. And number 4, engaging in sexual intercourse, but no more than 2 times every 7 days, and using a minimum amount of time and resources in association with such engagements. Now, that's not to throw sand on anybody's picnic, but, you know, when you're having marathon sex, we're talking about time and energy now. This is under economics. That means you are neglecting to do the other 2 things at the top of the list of the 4. You're not studying and whatnot, and you're not producing anything, of constructive value necessarily and whatnot, but you're just having this marathon sex. It's over and over and over and on and on and on, as if that's the focal point of everything in the universe. No. You should limit it, and you'll enjoy it more, too. To no more than 2 times every 7 days. While you're doing it now, you do plenty of it, but just twice every 7 days, and using a minimum amount of time and resources in association with such engagements. What do I mean by that? It means you don't have to travel 2,000 miles, and dress it all up. With a whole bunch of time and resources and expenditures, pretending that you are going to a so-called civil rights convention when you're just going there to get in bed with somebody.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
No. Go there and take part in the civil rights convention, or the Black Affairs Convention, or the Black Caucus Convention, or whatever it is. The Mexican festival, or whatever. But do something constructive. It's about doing something constructive. Is this constructive? Always ask yourself that. And the sexual thing, like Mardi Gras in Brazil, all right? Well, you look at that and say, is this constructive? At the end of the day, at the end of Mardi Gras, what was actually accomplished that was of constructive value, that will resonate throughout this entire land from here on in? Did anything happen at that Mardi Gras that we keep having? We need to examine everything that we are doing. Talking about what now? Economics.
Okay.
The use of time and energy.
Okay. Joseph, Valencia Joseph said, good morning. BW Gifts out of Houston checking in, saying hello. And since we're on this, Curtis Jr. is asking, Mr. Fuller, are you saying basically, let's see here, are you pushing people to the vegan eating agenda versus eating all food in moderation?
Oh, I said eat only as necessary.
There you go.
I had to have it. Of just like everybody. I'm trying to break it. I'm doing a pretty good job
of course
right now, but belatedly, and that is just eating just because there's some food there. And black people, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere, we'll go to a meeting, and we can't sit still for 5 minutes until we don't let us sit there and smell some barbecue. My goodness, the meeting is over. When they gonna feed? And you weigh 500 pounds now. We get up and go down that buffet, and I'm telling you, the eyes get big, and we just start grabbing stuff. Got food running out of both ears and grabbing for more. I understand it. It's frustration.
Yes.
It's frustration about everything else that's going on.
Okay.
People deal with the mind call it oral regression.
Oral regression.
All right. In other words, all your problems, you're taking it out on food. But the food is artificial and it's making you sick.
It really is. TalkTapeRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, as we just were talking about, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here are several that I would really like to share with you right off the bat. At the table. Check it out. See what Al Water has to say. Wiggins World And one of my favorites, New Money. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Just click on programs for the scheduled times, and you can check it out. TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. Hi, I'm the co-host of The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am Mr. Bobby. And this is radio the way it should be heard. We are speaking on sex, but as you can see, the show can go in any direction because all questions deserve to be answered, and Mr. Fuller will address those. Let's go to the phone lines. What line are we on here? Line number one? Okay, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. The topic today is sex. Okay, I'd like to add something to it. I remember many years ago when I went to college, guys were studying abnormal psychology. They used to have to watch porn movies in college. And I thought it was interesting. They used to come out of those meetings with like a bomb had went off behind them. Well, the white people would come out like nothing was wrong. And I thought it was interesting. I think white people have more hang-ups about sex than anybody on the planet.
Mr. Fuller?
Well, that's an observation. VGQ. Yes, and, people should listen to what you just said, and you didn't have a question there, but you had an observation, so take that into consideration.
Okay. Was there any more before we let you go, dear?
Yes. Also, Mr. Fuller, you know it's in the news now about all these shoot-ups taking place with whites, and they're dying of these crack epidemics now. And I've been telling people, well, they have the highest genetic nervous disorder of anybody else on the planet. Giving them drugs like heroin going unchecked, letting them stockpile guns and weapons unchecked, then we'll have these results.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
And the question is what now?
Well, I was just making a comment that recently whites have been in the news for all these heroin overdoses and shooting up places.
What I say about the mass shootings and all like that, in the system of white supremacy, murder of all kinds is glorified as a major form of entertainment.
Wow.
That's a direct quote. All right. In the system of white supremacy, murder of all kinds is glorified as a major form of entertainment. Now, that statement is either true or false. But when you look around you, you turn on your television set at 3 o'clock in the morning, you flip the channels even with the sound off. What do you see? Somebody with a gun.
Yes.
Somebody chasing somebody. You see car chases and whatnot. Somebody's trying to kill somebody. You see all kinds of scenarios. You see detectives in laboratories, trying to track somebody who has murdered somebody. But murder is fun. Murder of all kinds in the system of white supremacy. And if you're murdering huge numbers of non-white people, all the better. All right? But murder just in general, just kill just to be killing. You want to kill somebody, buy some guns and, and then look around for something to shoot at in the form of a life. What we call a living person, a creature of some type. Shoot at a few targets, or a tree or something like that. If you're just bored and whatnot. But, they get real bored with that real quick. The white supremacist system, the white supremacist mentality. I need a person to shoot. And if I can't shoot some of them dark people, ain't none around or something like that, I'll just shoot at whatever persons happen to be around, starting with family members. Hey, I got to shoot somebody. I got all this hardware here. I worship the tools of murder. Even when they have what? You see it everywhere, but we have to look and see what we're looking at. When somebody holds up what they call the Oscar at the movie awards, what do you see? The Oscar is a statue, a statuette, they call it. And what does that Oscar have, that statuette? A sword. You go through a public square, and you see all kinds of monuments. People don't have houses. They don't have shelter. They don't even have a tent to go to in the middle of the night. Thousands of people all over the world
But you got all this money to spend on monuments that take up the entire heart of a city. And some person is sitting up there, a statue, very expensive, taking up all that real estate with somebody who's some general somewhere holding what? A sword. The symbol of death. See, they glorify murder.
Yes, yes.
Detective stories in every bookstore. You find more murder mysteries and whatnot than you find books telling you how to grow anything. All right? And they don't want to know, why do these people act the way they do? Well, your whole society is structured on killing. You don't believe in anything breathing. You believe in stopping everything from breathing. That's the mentality.
That's the mentality.
Under the system of white supremacy, and we all been infected by it.
That's right. Lulu Tally, Lulu Tally indicated, Mr. Fuller, that you are her favorite person. She had that in capital letters. Anthony Weeks said the information that you just dropped, wow. Concerning that statue of the Oscar, when you made that statement, Mr. Fuller, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had not known that that was the case. So you know me, I'm always in the research mode. I looked it up, and I also looked at a close-up picture of that statue. And yes, there is a sword there. You were absolutely on it. I learned something I did not know that, but there is a sword on it. So it goes what you're just saying, the glorifying of murder. Woo! Outstanding. Let's go to the phone lines. What line are we? One? Okay. One, you're on with Mr. Neely Fuller. Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller, the topic today is sex. You know, Mr. Fuller, I told people a long time ago when I saw that football player that killed himself in jail, Eric Hernandez.
Aaron Hernandez of the New England Patriots, I believe it was.
That's the one.
Yeah, okay.
When I saw him with a black woman, a bell went off in my head. I said he's got some sexual hang-ups, and he's trying to reassure his manhood by getting that black woman.
Woo!
When I saw that, you know, because he got a black woman in the time period where a lot of them ball players are going after white women and light-skinned women that are not white. And that man is Hispanic. So when I saw him with that black woman, a bell went right off my head. He's got some sexual problems he's trying to work out by getting her, and it's going to come out. Just give it some time.
Excuse me, Mr. Fuller, may I ask her a question?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. Sister, you made this observation. Okay, can you help me? Because I didn't see that. What made you think that, or you knew that he had some sexual hang-ups?
Well, just like I said, most of them ball players was going after white women or light-skinned non-white women.
Okay.
Okay. Now, why would he be after a dark woman all of a sudden when he's a Hispanic man? That right there starts, a bell went off, and then I remember what Dr. Cress Wilson said about how a lot of white men don't feel like they're men unless they slept with black women. Okay, and then I've dated different men of different races. I live in a very racial diverse city, and I noticed that a lot of men that have hang-ups, they feel like they can become a man or straighten out their manhood if they were a black woman.
Okay.
So it's about 3 or 4 things that maybe make the connection.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, would you comment on that? Why do some people feel that being with a black woman reveals a sexual hang-up that they may have?
Well, if it's a white person, it's just a matter of child abuse. That's all it really is. I mean, a non-white person in the system of white supremacy is a prisoner of war and also has been reduced to a permanent state of boy and girl. You can't be men and women in this state. It's impossible. If you're a victim of racism, you are in prison, and you have no rights or nothing. You have nothing going for you. You're in the state of a child. You are completely dependent on the prison masters, whom, within a racial context, is the system of white supremacy. You are in a prison that you can call, if you gave a name to it, the system of white supremacy, a world prison, if you're a person of color. So therefore, you're reduced to a child. So it's child abuse. Anytime a white person has sexual intercourse with a person who is functionally a child. We're not men and women. I'm not a man. I'm a boy in the system of white supremacy. Why? Because I have no power. A boy has no power. A boy is subject to men and women. All right? That's just the law of the universe. I mean, you know, it's not a stigma as such. It's just a fact. But it's a stigma within the context of white supremacy. Okay? So I'm reduced to a status of a boy. So when they call me boy, they're calling me accurately. I can get angry and all like that, but they're calling it like it really is. They're not making that up. That's the truth. Why? Because I have no say-so about nothing. I'm in their house, you might say. It's like a boy in the house of what you call elders, and the boy doesn't know how to function except to go to the elders. That's the state that we are in. We do not know how to function without the white supremacists. That's why whenever you see black people anywhere on the planet, you see them right now, 2017, in boats everywhere, all over the world. I mean, coming across deserts, babies in their arms and whatnot, trying to find what? Which way did the white people go? That's really what they're asking, because that's where everything is that's worth anything. If you're around a whole bunch of black people, everything is falling apart. That's the truth. In Brazil, in Mali, in the Sudan, in so-called North Africa, and you know, and everything that we glorify when we start talking about our ancient kingdoms and all like that, go there and take a look. I haven't been there, but I've heard enough about it from people who have been there. That's what they see, poverty. And one question. Like I said, all problems are solved through the process of what? Questions and answers.
Yes, sir.
And what are they asking? They're asking, which way did the white people go? Because that's the only place I know where I can get something that makes sense. These people that I'm around all day looking like me are not making sense of nothing. And I got to get where the white people are. And even when I contact black people who know a little bit about how to get something done that makes sense, these are black people who have been in contact with the white supremacists. Otherwise, they wouldn't know anything either. All right? We need to start telling ourselves the truth about what our status really is.
Okay. Talk to him at radio.com. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are in the 8th area of people activity, sex. We will be on this topic for quite a while. Mr. Fuller had mentioned, I think in the first hour, mentioned to go slowly. And we are going to really take our time to go through this because we need to know what sex is and how it works. And Mr. Fuller is explaining that. Anyway, this is Talk to Him at Radio, and this is the way that radio should be heard. Now, you can get in contact with the show by going to facebook.com/talktainment. There's a like button you can hit there, and then I believe that there's a comment button there. Also, 1-877-932-9766, or Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, and your question goes in rotation, and then I will get to it as soon as Mr. Fuller addresses it. It's a first-come, first-served basis. Brother Mitro from the land that he calls so-called French Guiana, you're a good question you have, but again, it's going to go in rotation. But I mentioned it because I wanted to call your name out and let you know that it was done. Okay, Brother Rahman, I will try to get to that question if it's still up, but I have to do this first. A caller from from Michigan, Asset from Michigan, wrote this. Mr. Fuller, according to Dr. Welsing, one of the reasons white people practice racism, white supremacy, is because they fear genetic annihilation. My question is, if that is true, why should white people engage in sexual intercourse with non-whites and produce children, which is an example of genetic annihilation? If they fear it, why do they engage in something they fear?
Well, I don't interpret anything that somebody else says. See, that's a part of the code. That includes Dr. Frances Wilson, bless her soul. And so, in her absence, I cannot editorialize anything that she has said or written. And I have been, in her presence many times, and even when I made presentations while she was here, we always made our presentations separate so that people could evaluate what is being said on its own merits.
Okay.
In other words, what comes from Dr. Wilson came from Dr. Wilson. And since she has passed on now, I definitely would not want to be the person who starts trying to interpret what she meant when she said anything. I might have my own ideas about it and all like that, but these are my ideas, but I would not voice them to anybody because that would not be doing the correct thing where she is concerned. That's why I'm saying, while people are here on this planet, try to express everything that you have to say while you're here, and try to express it in such a way that everybody understands exactly what you meant, so that there's not what, when you're gone,
confused, yes.
And that includes Neely Fuller. I mean, I try to clear up everything that I say. That's why I talk so long in answer to a question. I mean, sometimes people say, well, I'm answering the question over and over again.
Yes.
I'm trying to ingrain this. This is the viewpoint that I have, so that after I'm gone, because I know how fast confusion can come up. People can say, well, I know what Fuller meant. I know something about Fuller. I mean, I talked to him and all like that, and on and on and on, and the next thing you know, it'll be nowhere close to what I meant. Okay? So I am very cautious in doing this, and I am telling everybody to be very cautious in making interpretations that you pass on from one person to another about what somebody else said.
All righty.
Have your own interpretation.
Yes, sir.
And act on it if it's of any value to you.
Okay. Dwayne Anderson asked this, Mr. Fuller, why does the Creator allow the system of racism, white supremacy to exist?
Why does the Creator do it?
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why the Creator created anything. I just know that the Creator did. And the way I look at it from what I have written is that we are here for a purpose. And so I concluded after many, many years of not knowing what that purpose was, I came to the conclusion about 40, 50 years ago, maybe more, that slowly came to the conclusion, we're here to solve problems. And then the next question, see, it's all about questions and answers. Why are we here? That's a question. Here to solve problems. That's an answer, maybe. Or maybe we're not here to solve problems. But I came to the conclusion, yeah, the answer to that question was we're here to solve problems. Well, Fuller, how did you come to the conclusion that we are here to solve problems? How did you come to that conclusion? Because we got problems. A baby in that crib has problems, and the baby can sense that. I came to the conclusion that's why babies cry. They come here crying. They don't come here laughing. All over the world. I don't care where they're born. They come here crying. Why? Because everything is all messed up. That's why. That's the conclusion I came to. It could be an incorrect conclusion. Just because that's the conclusion I came to doesn't say it's true.
Okay.
But I say that that's the reason we're here. And so what problem, if you're a person of color, should you be solving? That's the next question. The one that's right in front of you. A color problem.
Okay.
Because, and that's why I have it in the textbook, you can't solve any problem if you're a person of color that you have, if you don't solve it within the context of trying to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice.
With this system of justice.
I don't care what problem you have in economics, in labor, in politics, in sex, in religion. I don't care what your religious problem is. If you don't address the problem of racism, you're not going to solve that problem. Why? Because the racists dictate everything
yes.
that a person of color does.
I hope that I can have you repeat that at the end of the show, because that's the conclusion I came to. Jay Blackson wrote this, and Jay, I'm sorry that I don't have it all, but it says this, Mr. Fuller, for black people who don't understand how white supremacy works, Mr. Fuller, if a black person have sexual intercourse with a white person in bed, can that white person still get up out of the bed and then it cuts off? That's all. It cut off Jay Blackson. I don't have the cursor in front of me, or rather the mouse in front of me, to extend your question. It just came up, see more, but that's as far as the question would go. I tell you what, Jay, if you Gmail me, then I'll wait a minute. You going to do it for me? Okay, wait a minute. Can you do that? We're going to make an attempt to get the rest of the question on. Wait a minute. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll read it. Thank you, Galen. For black people who don't understand how the white supremacy works, Mr. Fuller, if a black person have sexual intercourse with a white person in bed, can that white person still get up out of that bed and practice racism, white supremacy?
The white person?
That's what it says here.
Yes, the white person is practicing white supremacy while they're in the bed.
Okay.
A white person who is having sexual intercourse with a non-white person in the system of white supremacy is practicing white supremacy. That's flat out. You know, it has nothing to do with feelings or nothing like that. It has to do with position.
Okay.
Position of power. The white person is the most powerful person in that interaction. They are not equal. They are not equal. A white person having sexual intercourse with a non-white person, that is not an equal exchange. The white person is the dominant person in the system of white supremacy, and that is the system of white supremacy is the only government on the planet worthy of being called a government. So therefore, the white person is exercising the power of white supremacy.
Okay.
In one of the most serious manners. That white person is dominant over that non-white person, regardless of how they feel emotionally. See, it's not an emotional thing. It's not personal. It's business.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's go take a phone call before we go to our 45. What line are we on, sir? Okay, line number 1. Go ahead with Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. This is really something that I've been trying to work through. Now, when we talk about the white supremacists as being the dominant, and there's never been a question about that, and we are in an abusive situation with them, just like a husband who's abusing his wife, or a wife who's abusing her husband, or whatever that other significant other relationship is, the rules have always said, get away from that person. Get away from that person and have no further contact. If a man blackens a woman's eye, she needs to get away from him until she can get some kind of control or get some kind of something. So I'm asking, what happens with us when we're in this subjugated condition, and the white supremacist is the dominant husband in this instance, brutalizing and beating up his spouse, which would be us non-white people? Where can we get away to? I mean, can you just give some answers, that you would use, that you are using, for what we do to get away? Because it really is a physical thing that we need to shield ourselves from, but it seems like there's no place that we can go. So I'll listen off the air.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fuller?
I don't know of any place you can go to get away from the system of white supremacy, because it's a dominant world system. It is the only government on the planet. If that's the question, if I understand the question, I have to understand the question. And because you mentioned, first of all, it was a sexual thing, and then it sounded like you were speaking generally. But in a relationship, in an abusive relationship, there's no place. You have to actually end the system of white supremacy. That's why I wrote the code book. The code book is designed also intended to be designed to best help the individual non-white person to think, speak, and act in such a way that that person will be effective in replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice in everything that the person does and says and thinks, thought, speech, action. Everything that you do is supposed to be designed to do that. If you don't design it to do that, you're wasting the Creator's time that was given to you. That's the way the counter-racist code system ideology looks at it.
Okay.
Any minute that you spend into doing anything else, you're wasting our creators, the creator of me, you, whatever created us. You're wasting that creator's time because that's our assignment. We don't have any other assignment.
Okay.
I mean, what little pleasures we get and whatnot out of doing that or something associated with that, that's fine. All right? But it's about the business of ending racism and replacing it with justice. If we are not doing that as people of color, we are not doing what we are supposed to be created to do.
All righty. Okay, Mr. Fuller, this is the time that we've set aside to speak a few moments about your book.
Yes, you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's just two words. Produce Justice, then add .com. Producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook. In addition to the basic textbook, it should have just been one volume, but I couldn't cram it all into one book, unfortunately. I'd like the print would have been too small for the average person to read. And so I had a dilemma. I had to come to a decision because the philosophy is one problem, one book. That's the codified philosophy. If you're addressing a problem, you put everything that you know that addresses that problem in one book, not have a whole bunch of books scattered all over the place that people got to chase down. No, get one book and say, this is it. If I do what is in this book, if I follow the instructions or the suggestions in this book, that problem that I have will be solved. If the book doesn't do that, the book is not carrying out its correct mission. According to what? According to counter-racist logic. You try to consolidate everything that you need in a small package. So I had to extend it to an addition volume from as far as my so-called quote-unquote contribution, and I don't like that word, but I'll use it, by putting it in two volumes. But the two volumes really add up to one volume.
Yes.
But it's a counter-racist guide for the victims, the individual victims. You don't have to look over your shoulder, check with somebody else, find out what's valid and what's not valid. You make the decision. It's totally democratic. You make the decision about what is useful in the book. Pick out those things that are useful to you, and those things that are not, just ignore them. One of the first people to look at the book, my original book, back in 1984, that edition, looked at the book and brought it back to me and said, Fuller, you know what this is? This is a whole lot of nothing. I ain't getting nothing out of this. You don't have nothing in that book that will help me do anything. I said, you didn't find nothing in there? He said, nothing. I said, that's the way the book is supposed to work. See, it's not argumentative. You're arguing with yourself. I mean, in other words, you look in there and you see something you can use it. If it doesn't work, definitely don't use it. And if you can, let me know that it didn't work. And I got to go to the research board.
Yes, sir.
Because it's supposed to work.
Okay. You can get in contact with the show by going to
producejustice.com.
All righty.
Producejustice.com.
Okay. Facebook.com/Talktainment is the way you can get in contact with the show. Many have done that, including Nas Sessi says, we have one job, and that is to produce justice. Oz Rahman, I did not get a chance to get your question, but if you would do that again, maybe next week I will have a chance to do that. This is show has international flavor, Mr. Fuller, because a letter from an email from a Gmail from Belgium has this to say. I'm not going to read the entirety, but I'll read the points that need to be made. The question is, what is the best thing to do about repeated mistreatment that my son is experiencing in a predominantly white school? It started along last year. Her son is only 4 years old and been called a bunch of dirty names. Let's see here. She was asking, with all these problems going on, and she lists a lot of different things of mistreatment with the school, and she's trying not to overreact. She says this: how should I behave? What should I do? I can't put him back in that school, knowing that no matter what I say or do, I never went there yelling, never, and always calm and trying to ask my questions. But it's not working, Mr. Fuller. They don't want to seem like they don't want to communicate with me. He's got bruises all over himself from looks like a physical assault. The pediatrician started to suggest that I need help, and that she was overreacting, and that I'm the one with the problem. In other words, they're trying to indicate that I'm crazy. Mr. Fuller, what can I do? I appreciate your help. Attempting parenting in Belgian plantation. This comes from her e-phone, Carol Soleil. Mr. Fuller, your suggestions.
You have to get in touch with whomever, whatever white person can get other white people to see your point of view. That's the only thing you can possibly do. You're a prisoner of war. So is your offspring. So just like in any prison, you have to find out if you can get to the person who can have the most influence, because you have none. You are alone. You have none. There are no non-white people anywhere on the planet that can come to your rescue. It has to be somebody white who can talk to the white people who are doing what they're doing and get them to stop doing it, or either give you some assistance in going somewhere else where these things do not happen.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, you have no other options. I mean, you're just in a part of the prison where the guards have decided that they're going to just kick the prisoner around, and nobody to talk to, nobody that you can have. You're a prisoner of war, and that's the thing you have to transmit to your son, that he is a prisoner of war. He's not in a society that's nurturing to him. He's a prisoner of war, and expect everybody to be hostile. That should be your expectation, because that's mine each and every day. I ain't expect any white person anywhere to say a kind word to me under any circumstance. I don't expect that. If I get it, I consider that a bonus. It's not supposed to happen even. It's not supposed to happen. I'm in a system of racism. And the same thing from non-white people. In other words, if I want to use an analogy, is Rick Blaine in his cafe in the movie Casablanca. Everybody who comes to him brings bad news. Nobody brings good news. Everybody's got a problem that they're going to dump on him and get him involved in something that's going to make a problem for him. He expects that. That's the way every non-white person on the planet should think.
Okay. And quickly, let's go to the phone lines. What line are we on, Galen? Line 1? Okay. Line 1, you're on. Go ahead with Mr. Fuller.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, I would like to be absolutely clear. I'm totally opposed to interracial dating, sex of any kind. That's my position. But Mr. Fuller mentioned that those who are involved in those type of relationships, non-white people, with white people, etc., that the white person always has the power over the non-white person. So if that's the case, then that they have power over the non-white person, the white supremacist, or that's the white person over the non-white person has the power relationship. But that's whether they're in the relationship or not with the white person. The system has power over non-white. So I need Mr. Fuller to be absolutely clear, to clear this up for me. What difference does it make?
Okay. Mr. Fuller, quickly.
Well, it's just more power. It's direct power and indirect power. Now, the indirect power is when two non-white people are engaged in sexual intercourse. But the white supremacists, they just say that that's two of our prisoners down there having sexual intercourse with each other. That's all. But it's in our prison system. So neither one of them have any power. I mean, but, you know, since they're going to have sex, preferably you just do what you can, because sex is very powerful. You have sexual urges, so, but you don't expect anything constructive to come out of it. That's another thing. You know, non-white people with each other, they cannot really depend on each other. That's why we don't have so-called marriages. Doesn't make any difference how many ceremonies we go through. Both the male and the female person in a system of white supremacy, if they're classified as non-white, they still have to answer to racist man and racist woman. Answer to them how? In what? In everything. If you want to get educated, you want a job, that black male cannot guarantee a black female anything. All right? Because he can't guarantee himself anything.
Mm-hmm.
He is a beggar. Like all prisoners of war are beggars. You beg the warden. Warden, can you paint my cell? Warden, can I have a new mattress? Warden, I mean, it's filthy in here. Can I get some cleaning supplies? Warden, can I get a little time out in the yard, more than I usually get? I mean, can I get a little time off?
Yes, sir.
I mean, warden this, warden that. And the wardens are all of the people who practice racism on this planet, white supremacists.
Okay.
They're the wardens of all non-white people.
All righty.
So you just do the best you can.
That's it.
Your so-called partner, but you can't depend on anybody except the white supremacists.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, Justin Waddell said, great show. Sun King Born said, Mr. Fuller, you have a brilliant mind. Before we go off the air, you know, when we hear the music, it's time to go, but you mentioned about justice. Producing justice would solve all the problems in the world. Is that correct, Mr. Fuller?
Oh, producing justice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, balance between people, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
There you go.
But then you have to also have correctness.
Okay.
In other words, everybody has to be doing the correct thing that will produce the most constructive result.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, caller. Thank you all. And we'll see you next week.
Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You